Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into something really interesting from the Permission to Break podcast.
Yeah, it's this idea about strength, but maybe not in the way we usually think about it.
Exactly. It's about vulnerability and how maybe constantly trying to be strong isn't actually, well, the best path. We're using their insights as a shortcut for you.
Because we get so many messages telling us, push through, stay tough.
Right. Don't show any weakness.
But this podcast asks, what if there's actually strength in not doing that? In admitting, hey, I'm not okay right now. That's what we're exploring.
Okay, so let's jump in. This pressure to always be strong, it's everywhere, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, just keep going, handle everything, put on a brave face, even if you're, drowning inside.
Exactly. And the podcast really highlights how we absorb that. We start thinking vulnerability is like failing.
So we built these walls.
Yeah, we pretend. Even when we're right on the edge, it's like this performance we feel stuck in.
But here's where it gets really thought-provoking. The podcast kind of flips our definition of weakness.
Totally.
It says that those moments where you feel like you're falling apart or breaking down, they aren't failures. They're just human responses. Like you've hit a limit or you're feeling something really deep.
And it reframes those signs we often judge, tears, needing to be quiet, needing space.
Yeah, we see them as negative.
Right, but the podcast suggests maybe they're signs of honesty. You're just being real about where you're at. It's not about lacking character. It's about acknowledging reality.
That really shifts perspective on hearing you're so strong.
Oh, definitely.
Because while people mean well, the podcast points out how heavy that can feel when you're actually feeling like incredibly fragile.
Yeah, it puts this pressure on you, doesn't it, to live up to that strong image.
It's a gap.
A huge gap sometimes between the you everyone sees and the you that's struggling inside. You might be carrying so much, but nobody knows because you look so capable.
And that feeling of being alone with it.
Yeah, it can be really isolating, yeah. The podcast argues that being authentic, actually owning your vulnerability, is way more important than keeping up that facade.
So if always striving to be strong is just, well, exhausting and isolating, what's the other option?
Well, this is the hopeful part, I think.
Okay.
The podcast talks about how letting yourself break, being vulnerable, can actually be where healing starts.
So not pushing it away, but leaning into it.
Kind of, yeah. It connects to just accepting that we're human, We aren't machines. We aren't supposed to be indestructible.
Right.
So recognizing when you need to pause or feel things or figure stuff out, that's not weakness. It's actually vital for your mental and emotional health. It's how you figure out what you really need.
Which leads to, I think, the most powerful takeaway from the podcast clips we looked at. Sometimes the biggest act of strength isn't holding it all in. It's actually having the courage to ask for help.
Yes. And that forces us to rethink what strength even means. Is it just gritting your teeth in silence?
Or is it something else?
Or is it knowing yourself well enough to say, I need support, and then being brave enough to actually seek it out? The podcast definitely leans towards the second one.
Makes sense.
It frames vulnerability not as some kind of deficit, but as real courage.
So boiling it all down from this deep dive, you really don't have to be strong 100% of the time.
Such a relief to hear, isn't it?
It really is. It's okay. It's actually healthy to feel overwhelmed sometimes or to need a break. Being real with yourself is what counts.
Yeah, giving yourself that permission to break, as the podcast put it. It's a powerful form of self-kindness in a world that just pushes relentless performance.
Definitely. So here's a final thought for you listening. Think about those times you felt you had to be strong, even when you weren't feeling it at all. What might change for you? What might open up if you actually gave yourself that permission, that space to just be? Something to think about.